Hello, Owls. Today we're focusing on some essential ACT reading strategies. The new Enhanced ACT Reading Test is 40 minutes long and contains 36 questions. That breaks down to about 10 minutes per passage, with 9 questions per passage, which gives you just over 1 minute per question. If you've taken any practice tests already, you probably know that getting questions correct isn't usually the hard part. The real challenge is answering all of them within the time limit. So today, our goal is to help you work efficiently. The challenge is not just comprehension, it is efficiency. You need to understand the passage well enough to answer accurately while also managing the clock. Let's start by talking about the 4 passage types that always appear in some order on the ACT reading test. The first passage is prose fiction, or literary narrative. These are excerpts from novels or short stories, and you can expect characters, narrators, and elements of plot. The second passage is social science, which covers topics like history, sociology, or psychology. The third passage is humanities, which includes subjects related to art, music, theater, speeches, or notable people. And finally, we have natural science, which can involve biology, chemistry, physics, or any other scientific field. There are a few important things to remember about these passages. First, you do not need background knowledge about any of the topics. The ACT will never test scientific facts or historical knowledge that you're expected to memorize. Everything you need to answer the questions is inside the passage. Even if the topic feels unfamiliar, you'll be fine. Second, every passage uses the same 5 types of questions, ranging from tiny details to big picture ideas. Even though the topics change, the question types do not. If you understand the 5 question types, the subject matter becomes much easier to manage. Next, let's look at a few strategies for approaching the passages. It is extremely important to figure out which strategies work best for you, and the only way to do that is by completing many practice tests. These strategies are highly personal. A method that boosts one student's score may lower someone else's. Should you skip the passage and start with the questions? Should you skim the passage for 30 seconds? Should you read every word slowly and carefully? Should you read the questions before you read the passage? There are many ways to approach the test, but you won't know which one works for you until you experiment. This brings us to what I call your sweet spot. Your sweet spot is the ideal balance between the time you spend reading the passage and the time you spend answering questions. A mathematically perfect split would be 5 minutes reading and 5 minutes answering, but very few students find that their ideal timing is exactly 5 minutes. Your sweet spot might be 0 seconds, meaning you skip straight to the questions. It might be 1 minute, which means you skim the passage for main ideas, names, places, and the first and last paragraphs. Or it might be 3 to 4 minutes, meaning you read the entire passage quickly but carefully. The only way to discover your timing sweet spot is to take several practice tests and try different approaches. When you experiment, you might discover some useful patterns. You might prefer reading all the questions first and then reading the passage. You might prefer skipping the passage entirely and jumping straight into the questions. Maybe you like reading a small portion of the passage first. Maybe you like reading the entire passage before answering anything. You might read the narrative passage fully, but start with the questions on the science passage. There are countless combinations, and only testing will reveal your best approach. One important reminder, the Enhanced ACT format is fairly new, and many online practice tests still use the old format. That's completely fine. The differences between the 2 versions are small, and the new version gives you slightly more time per question. Using any practice test is perfectly acceptable. Simply give yourself 10 minutes per passage while you experiment with strategies. And now for my favorite tip. Read every passage as if you enjoy the topic, even when you don't. Just like anything else in life, your attitude affects your performance. If you go into a passage with enthusiasm, you'll stay focused and understand it better. If you want a sky-high score, you have to treat that passage on floral arrangements as if it's the most fascinating thing you've ever read. Now let's take this for a spin. In a moment, I'll show you an actual ACT passage and start a timer. To make sure everyone in the classroom can see it clearly, I'll divide the passage into 3 segments. Each segment will be about the same length, and each will stay on the screen for 1 minute. This gives you the chance to accomplish 3 things. First, test your ability to stay engaged with a topic you may not naturally care about. Second, figure out whether 3 minutes feels too long, too short, or just right for reading an ACT passage. And third, test your ability to remember details so you can answer a few Edpuzzle questions afterward. Ready? Let's begin. All right, how did it go? Was it difficult to read each segment while also remembering the information? Or did it feel easy? Whatever your experience was, you can now adjust how much time you spend reading and how much time you spend answering questions. Let's close with a few Edpuzzle questions to test your recall. That's all for today. Have a great day, Owls.